For all of you who are just joining us, this is our Sunday evening presentation of the Never Again Live podcast series with Meir Halevi Weinstein. Start momentarily. We have some guests with us tonight also, which we'll introduce shortly. And typically we do broadcast on Wednesday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, occasionally on Sundays also, but this week we're doing it on Sunday instead of Wednesday. So sorry you'll miss us on Wednesday night, but we'll be back next week. So we're going to again be discussing the Toronto District School Board. And this is kind of part B. We did discuss this several months ago with the whole Desmond Cole and with Davila and on going on. And instead of getting any better in spite of our greatest attempts and a lot of other Jews and non-Jews and Zionists alike, it continues to worsen. And again, it's the children that are the ones who suffer giving false information, misleading information. So with us tonight, we do have Michael Tepper, local attorney from the Toronto area, as well as Ron East is back with us again, director and publisher of the JCA, Canada's leading source for news involving Jews and pro-Israel. And we'll have Meir do the Parsha of the week. And without any further ado, here's Meir.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be with you. That's right. What was pointed out earlier that we're not going to have a show this Wednesday evening. Therefore, there's a lot that has happened over the weekend, in fact, and it's good to be with you tonight that we can discuss this. A lot going on in terms of the Toronto District School Board with a resurgence of anti-Semitism. We're going to get into that. There's also been in Poland, the BDS joining a far-right organization calling for the death of Jews, calling to kill Jews. We're going to be discussing that, and we're going to show that there you have BDS people holding Palestine flags and banners calling for the Intifada. We'll get into that. There's more that we'll be discussing as well, but there really seems to be this resurgence. But before that, we always start every show with a few words from the Parsha. A little discussion about that. That's essential. And also, let me ask everyone who's joining us, if you could please share this with the various pages and groups that you're part of on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. We'll appreciate it. We'll reach a lot more people, have a stronger impact. So the Parsha that we read in Shul this past Shabbat was Vayetze. And it's very interesting that let me just read a tiny bit from it and we'll get into it because there's an essential lesson to be learned from this Parsha. And here we go. Yaakov left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He reached the place and spent the night there because the sun had set. Now, what is the place? The place is the Temple Mount, Har Bayit. He took some of the stones of that place and arranged them around his head, and he lay down to sleep in that place. He dreamed, and behold, this is really something. He dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and on top of it reached towards heaven. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending, and behold, God stood above it and said, I am God, your God, the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Yitzhak, the land upon which you are lying. I will give to you and to your descendants, to the Jewish people. That's the promise. Your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth. You shall spread to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. Through you shall be blessed all the families of the earth, and through your descendants Behold, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not forsake you until I have done that which I have spoken to you. Yaakov awoke from his sleep, and he said, in truth, God is in this place, and I did not know it. We all become busy. We don't even realize the reality of the situation, that Israel belongs to the Jewish people, that the Temple Mount is ours, that we had temples and it's holy. He was afraid and he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Now, there's a lot in the Parsha. There's a lot more that goes on, but just looking at that Parsha on a basic level, when you realize how precious it is, that it belongs to you, that God gave it as a gift to the Jewish people forever, that should give us an incredible pride that no matter what the opposition is to our claims and the lies and the hate and the anti-Semitism that exists, and we're going to get into that tonight. We're going to show the proof in the video, and we're going to be discussing it. We got great people with us tonight to discuss this. We have to hold firm, and we have to cherish what God gives us. We're Jews. We have to be proud. We have to embrace our faith. We have to embrace Israel. We have to stand up for Israel and stand up to the lies. A lot of lies were said on Friday at a school in Toronto. And this is spreading like wildfire to other schools, other communities, and other cities. We're going to be discussing that. We have Michael Tepper with us, who's a lawyer in Toronto, and he's been, certainly he's written about the TDSB, and there was a case that was going on before. If we could have Michael Tepper come on and we could discuss this with TDSB, then Ron could discuss this with us as well. Let's go. I don't know if the screen is lighting up for Michael Tepper. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Good evening.
Good evening. So we have that rally gathering outside the Mark Gardiel Collegiate Institute. That's in Toronto. That's in an area called Valley Park, and very close to that school is a mosque run by the Islamic Society of Toronto, and they support the All Quds Day, and they're involved with the prayers in public schools. There was a whole controversy a number of years ago about that, and I was involved with other groups speaking out against that because we saw that radicalization is going to be going on in these schools, and what we see now happening is this radicalization, calling for the end of Israel, chanting from the river to the sea, support for the teacher that was in the news a number of months ago that you have written about. And maybe we could discuss that, and we could discuss also, we have a screenshot of the demands that this particular group of students put together. We're not sure who is telling them what and who is putting together the material for them, but Michael, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Thank you. The story began back in May. Mr. Javier Davila is a student equity program advisor at the Toronto District School Board. I believe he works downtown out of the TDSB office at Central Tech School. And the materials he put out was I think it was the 6th or 7th in a series, but this one was about the Middle East conflict. And the materials were exclusively one-sided in that it was portraying the government and people of Israel as being the villains in the story. And materials also called for boycott, divestment, sanctions. That is not what got me all that excited at the beginning. I thought it was inappropriate that he uses taxpayer resources to send out these kinds of materials. That's not why he is entrusted with those resources. But what really got me excited was when he got to the links at the end, because he included about 100 different links. He put in a disclaimer that he had not read all of them, which I found a little strange, that he is a professional in circulating a library of curated resources and says he hadn't even read them. But at any rate, I did start reading them, and I fell off my chair when I got to reading number 2. And that reading was something that he actually identified as a so-called important read. And I'd like to extract from that for the benefit of the audience. It was a essay that was originally published in the 1960s by Malcolm X. And this one was published in something called the Egyptian Gazette. Never read that in the newspaper otherwise, but at any rate, it starts off this way. The Zionist armies that now occupy Palestine claim their ancient Jewish prophets predicted that in the last days of the world, their own God would raise them up a Messiah who would lead them to the promised land, and they would set down their own divine government in this newly gained land. This divine government would enable them to rule all other nations with a rod of iron. And it continues, these Israeli Zionists religiously believe that their Jewish God has chosen them to replace the outdated European colonialism with a new form of colonialism so well disguised that will enable them to deceive the African masses into submitting willingly into their divine authority and guidance without the African masses being aware that they are still colonized. So, what I figured, this means that the Zionists want to rule all the other nations with a rod of iron based on leadership from a Messiah because they were chosen by a Jewish God to engage in a new form of colonialism to deceive the African masses into submitting willingly to their divine authority and guidance. And I thought, hey, that sounds a little bit anti-Semitic, doesn't it? Yeah, not just under the International Holocaust Remembrance Association definition, which I know that some of our friends on the left have problems with, but under the one that they like, which is the Jewish Declaration of Antisemitism. And it links Jews to the sinister forces of evil, creating a state within the state, owning the banks, spreading disease, stealing all the fertilizer and creating world starvation, etc. And so I got pretty exercised about that statement. I thought it was wildly wrong for a TDSB educator to be putting that in so-called educational materials. And I thought, this is really bad. And then I kept going. And I went to the next link that he put out. And it was to a pamphlet put out by an outfit called the New England Committee to Defend Palestine. And the juicy bit is at the end. It says the Palestinians have been legitimately resisting racism, colonialization, and genocide since the 1920s to the present day by any means necessary. General strikes, demonstrations, periods of non-cooperation, and among other things. And then we get to the part at the end, armed struggle and martyrdom operations called suicide bombing by Zionists. That's right, suicide bombing. So let's get this straight. In the course of doing his job, of his so-called professional activities, Mr. Javier Davila sent out a link to his fellow educators that says suicide bombing is legitimate. So my challenge to all of Mr. Davila's supporters is, now that you know this, and this is a provable fact, do you still back Mr. Davila? Because if you do, then you effectively agree that suicide bombings are A-okay. And this is a yes or no proposition. There is no middle ground, no logical middle ground. So that and some other items, including links.
And Michael, let me just interject for a moment. So, and these students at that high school in the Valley Park area, they said in their statements, they're supporting him. And in their chants, they're supporting him.
Yes, that is true. Now, I have no idea what the students actually know about Mr. Davila. Mm-hmm. Mr. Davila has been taken to task in social media, particularly social media originating from the Jewish community quite frequently on it, and he has blithely ignored it. He is currently the subject of an official complaint to the College of Teachers from myself and also from B'nai B'rith Canada. The dynamics of that are a bit of a long story I won't waste everyone's time with here, but he knows about this and he is blithely ignoring it, refusing to take responsibility for the links that he has sent out. And presumably, the students don't know about it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and good faith that if they did know about it, they would look at the content of their protest perhaps in a different light.
I think we have a screenshot of the protest. If our doctor in the studio could show the screenshot of the protest, we could elaborate a little bit more. No, that's not the one.
That's a different one.
Yeah, but we'll certainly get into that because that's relevant as well.
But what I would like to point out, though,
right,
if I may, is that I'm not really faulting the students so much. I think that they are being manipulated. Who I am faulting are the teachers and the administrators at the school, because there were several tweets that came out from several teachers enthusiastically supporting the students' action, which included withdrawing from classes. And one of those teachers, her name is Meir Beaupre, who sent out more than one tweet fully supporting the fact that these students.
She's in charge of the English department, I believe.
She's in the English department. I don't know if she's in charge or not, but she obviously has a full position there. But at any rate, she was enthusiastically endorsing those decisions and that protest. And my question is whether that is an appropriate observance of the boundary between teachers and students. Teachers are put in the classroom to offer instruction, not to recruit students for participation in their own political agenda. Ms. Beaupre has expressed support for Mr. Davila in several tweets prior to this incident. And it remains an open question as to the degree of influence that she may have had and the environment that she is creating after the fact, at least by sending out these tweets. So
there's the screenshot up on the screen, right?
Yes, that's that is a screenshot of what she said. So I think that some questions need to be asked of the TDSB in an official capacity to open an investigation to find out the degree of staff and administration participation in this demonstration. It's pretty clear that this demonstration was not spontaneous. The signs, the flags, the other pieces of hardware, the megaphones, those do not get stored in students' lockers all the time just in case they decide to spontaneously walk out of class and have a demonstration. That doesn't make any sense. So they obviously had this rehearsed and prepared. The question is, who was doing the rehearsals and the preparation? The other thing I'd like to talk about is the manifesto that they put up. And could we get some assistance?
Maybe we can get that on the screen, the demands that they came up with.
Because I'd like to offer a few observations about that.
Maybe Ron could join us as well while we're going to be looking at.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I don't want to monopolize this whole talk.
No, we could show the screenshot of the manifesto, the demands that they have.
Okay, so Ron, did you send that to me?
I did. It wasn't something I would have sent. I didn't know. Mayor would have sent to you at some point, I think.
Okay, let me see if I could find it.
You know, I am while the doctor is looking for it, I'd like to believe, you know, in the way that Michael wants to believe, and I know it comes from his profession, you know, that these kids are, you know, unknowingly supporting, you know, Javier Davila, you know, in their actions. I believe quite the contrary. I think this is a very oiled machine, and there's a reason for everything they're doing. And there's progress and steps in what they're doing. They're going to try and put maximum pressure on the TDSB and anybody else who's investigating or looking into professional conduct, and scare them into trying to get them to not sanction Mr. Davila in any form. And this was just the beginning. This protest was just the beginning. I can see a lot more things happening in the future. I can see them marching to the TDSB building. I can see sit-ins. I can see this thing escalating more and more and more. And I can see a call across the whole entire TDSB community, if you want to call it, for other like-minded students, Muslims and others, to come out in support. And before you know it, something like this goes completely out of control. And that's
as Michael pointed
fear,
out, if you follow even the Twitter page where they're promoting it and commenting on it, that there's various teachers, there's a vice principal, in fact.
You know, so as I mentioned prior to the show, Meir, you know, imagine yourself being a teacher in a school such as this school, predominantly Muslim and influenced by forces that are anti-Israel, anti-Zionist.
Oh, here
imagine
it is.
You just want to show up. I'll just finish my point. You want to show up to work, come to work. You know, you're not going to go against, you know, the stream. You're not going to swim like a salmon upstream. You're going to go according to stream because you don't want any problems for yourself. And, you know, it's in the end of the day, you're going to start taking on the position of those people just to save yourself. And, you know, I wonder how many of these teachers are more influenced by their students than the other way around. And I'll let Michael take over for this because he wanted to mention some stuff about this.
Very much. I'd like to talk a little bit about the list of demands. And if I could have those restored to the screen for just 1 minute, please.
Give me 1 minute. I'll divide it into 2 sections so it can be seen on the screen. So keep talking and I'll be right back with you with the demands.
Sure. So the point that I wanted to make is that I read through those demands fairly carefully, and I consulted with some teachers in the TDSB about them. And the language that is used in those demands is reflective of the linguistic style of pedagogical manuals. It's reflective of what is, of the kinds of words that are used in faculties of education. It's not the kind of vocabulary that you would typically see from high school students. For example, number 3, adopt a definition of anti-Semitism that is decolonial and does not perpetuate unfair power relationships between a state and its occupied people. The IHRA definition dehumanizes Palestinians and has been rejected by many university faculty associations for this reason. Now think about it. Do students write that way?
The fact that they're including university faculty association in there suggests you who wrote it. They didn't say university student associations, but university faculty
I'm sorry, but grade 11 students don't talk about what university faculty associations write about. They have no clue what universities faculty associations do. So this suggests to me, and I don't have any evidence to prove it, but I'm just appealing to common sense, that this is not written by students. It was foisted on them by adult advisors, and the students just adopted it wholesale and said, thank you very much, here it is. Which suggests to me that they are being manipulated. There are puppet masters, there are Geppettos pulling strings. So this is something that I think the TDSB needs to investigate as to why they are suffering their students to become pawns in a much larger game. There is something else that I'd like to get into, which is that when Mr. Davila was first put on home assignment, that was not the end of it. He was put on home assignment for about 3 weeks and then restored to his duties after a so-called investigation that is completely opaque and there's been no public disclosure of it, despite attempts of various organizations and individuals, including myself, to get some disclosure. The TDSB has been adamant in refusing to do so. But there was also a lady by the name of Debbie Kasman, who used to be a superintendent in the Kawartha Region District School Board and used to work for the Ministry of Education, who took the director of education of the TDSB at the time, her name was Karen Falconer, to task over Falconer's decision to put Davila on home assignment. And in the materials that she put on her blog, which are still there, Kasman stated that, or speculated, that the fact that Karen Falconer is Jewish played a role in her decision process. And she suggested, again, without any supporting evidence, that Karen Falconer may be biased against Palestinians on account of the fact that she's Jewish. And to my mind, that leaves no Jewish elected or appointed official safe. Elected or appointed Jewish official makes a decision that somehow involves Palestinians, however tangentially. They could be acting because they're speculatively biased. If they are making a decision regarding another Jew, well, that just shows that they're showing favoritism and all the Jews stick together. So according to the Debbie Kasman theory, what Karen Falconer should have done when she became aware of this whole situation is to reach into her desk drawer, pull out her handy dandy yellow star, stick it on her jacket, and walk home to the ghetto and let a good, honest to goodness, objective non-Jew make the decision for her. And I found that that kind of motive guessing based on stereotypes is anti-Semitism at its finest. And that's the reason that I filed a complaint with her at the Ontario College of Teachers personally. It's currently under investigation, and the report is going to be coming out sometime in the next month or so. The college takes its sweet time to do this investigation, along with virtually every other one that it does. The other thing I like to point out is regarding Mr. Davila himself. He is a poster boy for capitalism. He is very good at raising money and seems to have a lot of friends. He started up a GoFundMe page that so far has raised $17,320. So at least at this point, my guess is that he has actually come out financially ahead on account of this whole business. He's laughing at us all the way to the bank. And so that's another question as to the ethics of a teacher who is under investigation, using that investigation as a money-making opportunity for himself.
Raise a lot of valid points, and your in your assertion and how you dissected this. I would have to say, like I said before, in point number 3, I wonder how many students care about university faculty associations, when they write their letter of demand. And then my next question to you, those demands are, completely out of whack with reality. And then the question is, what are the students or those who are leading the students planning to do if those demands are not somehow met? What is the next level of resistance, protest, walkout, and that they're willing to undertake in order to gain their demands? It's fascinating, when you look also at statistics in Canada, and Meir and I discussed this today offline. And the fastest growing population within Canada is the Muslim population. I think they tripled over the last 5 years or 10 years. I might be off by a couple of years here or there. And that has a great impact on the discourse and the conversations that are being had in high schools, universities, and on the streets of our cities, and requires, an adequate response from our community leadership, which is failing us again and again and again. Many Muslims, especially young Muslims, in that age of 14 to 18 to 20, get quickly radicalized by the whole notion of the Palestinian cause. These are children who were born in Canada, raised in Canada, never experienced Gaza, the West Bank, Israel, the conflict, or any of it, never visited, never been there, but they're being radicalized at home. They're being radicalized in their mosques. They're being radicalized and at schools, and we know what peer pressure is like when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, and teachers of the schools are scared, so they're going to be behind. I mean, there's pictures that we gave to the doctor can put up of some prayers taking place at the school.
Yeah,
The
if we could
students
show
walked
those,
out,
that would
and
be, that's for that school, that particular
yeah,
school to
yeah.
show. So if we,
But
mhm.
But what it just shows you, it shows you that the school's been taken over by the students. You know, it's very much like when a prison gets taken over by the inmates, and then the prison guards no longer control it. If you look at this school, you can see that the school has been taken over by the large population of Muslim and pro-Palestinian students, and the teachers are left, kind of standing in the hallway, just looking at the hallways,
Look
and
at,
not being able to do anything.
that's
If you
right,
get the
Ron.
pictures up.
So back to the manifesto, as Michael pointed out. So number 3, adopt a definition of anti-Semitism that is decolonial. Okay, so what they mean, because that's the lingo of the BDS groups today, that the Zionists, the Jews, are the ultimate colonizers. So when you look at a map of the Middle East, what do you see? You see huge Arab Muslim countries. The area that they control is, I guess, similar to the size of Canada, Russia, the United States. A large area of land, huge area of land. And when you look at Israel, the size of Israel compared to that, it's a little dot. It's literally a little speck compared to the landmass that they have. Colonizers. I read today from an organization called, they put it out on their Facebook page, Islamic Relief Canada. They put out a statement about Palestine has existed for over 4,000 years.
Well, but they claim that through the idea of the olive tree, right? They're claiming that somehow the olive tree and the Palestinian cause or the Palestinian people are one in the same. And somehow, for 4,000 years, as the olive tree grew in the land, they're the ones who tended to it and cared for it and brought it to life. It's so bizarre because 4,000 years ago,
there's no Jewish history there. There's no story of Joshua coming in. There's no story of King David and King Solomon building the temple and the kingdoms and then returning after it was destroyed for the second temple, and none of that existed.
Correct.
And we have no history there.
If you can revise history and you can retell it, and nowadays you can retell it on many platforms, social media and others, and you retell it enough times and you share it enough times, and you got young people like we see in this school that we're talking about in Toronto can be easily manipulated. It's not far-fetched, where history all of a sudden gets changed. I'll tell you another thing, they're going more and more into the anti-Zionist versus anti-Jewish slogan, because they're trying to separate Zionism from Judaism, and therefore you're not anti-Jewish, you're therefore just anti-Zionist, and you're not fighting against the Jews. It makes you just feel better, right? It's just like
they did that stunt in Poland in the 1960s.
So that's
very old.
But what I'm trying to say, it makes you feel better, just like with the Germans. Jew hatred didn't sound very good. You couldn't swallow it well. But anti-Semitism, became a scientific term, and then you can justify feeling that way. Now it's something scientific. So the same way here, anti-Zionist, you don't mention the word Jew, you can believe in your own mind that somehow you're not being anti-Semitic, and therefore, anybody who suggests you are, they themselves are being, anti-Semitic by suggesting it. It's reverse psychology to its worst degree, and just awful.
And now we're seeing a relationship building between BDS, Free Palestine organizations, and the far right neo-Nazi groups. So we have a clip, if our doctor could put it up, of a rally that took place, an anti-Jewish rally that took place in Poland, that was joined by the BDS, by the Free Palestine people, and they were calling to kill Jews. They were burning a document that
legalized Jewish life in Poland.
That's right.
They burnt it and said that Jews should have no legal standing within Poland. And
can I just offer a little bit of background on this? This was a document that actually came from the Middle Ages, of the ancient kingdom of Poland, a few centuries before it was partitioned. And this was at a time when many Western European countries, England, France, and later on Spain, were expelling their Jewish populations. The Eastern European monarchs were welcoming the Jewish refugees and offering them a degree of toleration, special royal edicts of toleration, primarily for economic reasons. And these were documents that guaranteed the safety of Jews in those kingdoms at the time.
Yeah, it's
right. And that's why there was such a large population of Jews in Poland in the first place.
Correct. I mean, it's part of the 2,000-year story of our people, right? And in the diaspora, right? You try to find a home wherever you can, temporary as it may be, wherever the refuge gives you some level of feeling of protection. And Poland and Eastern Europe certainly provided the Jews trying to flee. The so-called, if you call it pogroms that were happening in Western Europe. Yeah, absolutely. And now the Polish are saying the same thing, to the Jews. We don't want you here. The people, that claim the Jews, shouldn't be in Palestine, who scream, go back to Europe. The Europeans saying, you don't belong here. You're not part of who we are. And then the Jews again are left in some kind of a vacuum. You don't belong in your own indigenous home. You don't belong where you were kicked out to. And, and then you have no home. No other people would ever have to face such a difficulty throughout their existence. And as for the Jews, no matter, as Meir said, how small of a speck of land we claim as our own, that is too big of a speck of land to be claimed by the Jews. For the Jews should have no right to claim of any speck of land. Who are we as Jews to claim a speck of land?
They say go back to Europe, go back to Poland.
Yeah, and then the Polish people say,
they attend rallies there calling for the murder of Jews,
wearing keffiyehs, and then the Polish ultra-right ends up wearing keffiyehs, holding Palestinian flags, claiming now that the Palestinian cause is their cause. So now the right, the extreme right now is wrapping their hands around the Palestinian cause, and now the far left and the far right are uniting together on a general cause, and that cause is the Jews. And again, we're
and that's what we're going to be seeing into the public schools.
Yeah.
I just want to make one other comment. The agitation, at least from the faculty and staff of the TDSB, is not religiously based. It's completely secular. Their organization of choice is the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is not an Islamic organization. It's a secular Marxist-Leninist organization. There's actually very little love lost between them and the religious-based Palestinian governments.
That's Michael. That's true now, but the founder of it, was George Habash, and George Habash claimed to be a religious Christian, so it was a Christian Arab Palestinian terrorist organization, different from an Islamic Arab Palestinian terrorist organization. But you're right, how it is right now. But the founder of it was George Habash.
I don't care what kind of costume you want to wear in your Jewish fashion, during the last escalation in Gaza, everybody fired rockets at Israel. Nobody stopped anybody from firing rockets. 100%. They cooperate with each other on a regular basis within the Gaza Strip and within the West Bank, and they can call themselves whatever they want. And I would tell you, to beginning with, I don't think that the conflict between the Palestinians and the Jews necessarily is a religious conflict. It's a conflict of hating Jews. That's it. It's that simple. It's Jew hatred. It's not necessarily, whatever you want to call it. Whether you want to be a Marxist, socialist, right wing, left wing, in the middle, I don't care. Bottom line, it's about Jew hatred. I mentioned to Meir last week at the show. When we start Meir's show, it's Avenu Shalom Aleichem. About peace. When he ends the show, usually it's some kind of a song about peace or redemption or a tikva or hope or something. Our entire shows, when I grew up as a child in Israel, you're taught about, the day that peace is going to come, the day that we can, hold hands together with our Arab and Palestinian neighbors and walk hand in hand. That's what you're taught at schools in Israel. And I grew up in Israel in Jewish schools, We don't sing songs at school about killing our neighbors, about slaughtering them. We don't put on plays, not in Purim and no other time of the year.
Here we have
showing us doing that. It just doesn't happen.
Ron, let's describe this screenshot. This is from, so we're not showing the video right now of what happened in Poland, but this is a screenshot that Jamie from the Wiedenthal Center put together. And it shows the Palestine flags at the rally in Poland, where they're calling to murder Jews. The Zionists are enemies, kill the Jews rally. And they burnt that document, as Michael pointed out. And some of the speakers have keffiyehs. They got banners there calling for the Intifada. This is what's going on. The merger of these groups.
Uniting in hate. And listen, what's happening on the Polish borders, don't underestimate the tension on the Polish borders right now with the mass migration of mostly Muslim Kurds, that are being, almost, bargained on their human lives by Putin and some other of his henchmen to try and put pressure on the West, to get some concessions. And that pressure on the border of Poland, is exacerbating already the tensions in Poland as it is towards immigrants and immigration. And again, who are the first people you're going to point your finger to when things go bad? It's the Jews, and it's the Jews' fault. For if you solve the problem in Palestine, there would be no reason for these migrants, the Kurds migrants, everybody else to come.
Yeah.
So the only reason they're trying to come into Europe is because of the conflict that's ongoing in the Middle East, and that conflict is a direct result of the Jews. So always, you circle back to, no matter what, that it's somehow the Jews' fault. And that's what's happening in Poland right now. And all these Polish right-wing are doing is they're trying to jump on the bandwagon and gain some, 15 minutes of fame and some extra points, upcoming elections, locally and nationally there. And they want to gain some momentum and gain some more power, and they use this as a crutch to do it.
Now, one more
Jews
point.
are always easy.
One more point with that document, the manifesto. Point number 7, they said, issue an apology to Desmond Cole for the unfair treatment he received because of free Palestine. Justice for any student and staff who has been subject to suspension or expulsion as a result of their participation in pro-Palestinian viewpoints. Yeah, like that really happens. Okay,
Listen,
so Desmond Cole.
It's also so open-minded. Everybody, it's like when there's a hunger strike by a Palestinian terrorist who's serving a life sentence in an Israeli prison for butchering an Israeli family, and then the message is, they're all just political prisoners. They all need an apology from the Israelis and the Jews for arresting them. So it's a blanket thing. Everybody should be apologized to. If you're pro-Palestinian and you called for the death of Jews, you should somehow be getting an apology because, hey, you suffered trauma. Even though you're 14 years old or 15 and you grew up in Canada and you live in one of the richest cities in the world and you probably live in the top 10 percentile of the world, you still feel somehow you've been done wrong to. That's how pathetic, Jew hate and this indoctrination is, that these kids sit here and sound like victims.
Remember what was pointed out, that again, Jamie from the Wiedenthal Center pointed out, she took all the screenshots of many of the supporters of Desmond Cole, who said, wait a second, free Palestine. No, it's not we want a peaceful resolution. We want to destroy Israel. We want to do this to Israel. We want to do so on and so forth. And she had all the screenshots and
listen, all you have to do is you have to look at the official seal of the Palestinian Authority. Their state of Palestine is not just, the carved little area of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. Their Palestine is an entire state of Israel. They're not hiding. It's on their keffiyehs, it's on their emblems, it's everywhere else that they talk about. So I don't need a Desmond Cole, and I don't need, other people who are supportive of his to tell me what free Palestine means. I know what free Palestine means. We all know what free Palestine means. And anybody who tells you they don't know is either ignorant, delusional, or somebody who's just false out lying, That's what it is, and there's no qualm. But now we should give everybody who says free Palestine a free walk, because they said free Palestine. Point number 7 or 8 there about, giving support to the trauma that they've experienced. Again, we're talking about 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who were born and raised here in Canada. What trauma have they suffered? They've taken over their school. They pray whenever they want to in their school. They walk out whenever they want to with the support of staff. What trauma have those children experienced? They eat at the best restaurants. They wear the best clothes. They live in the best neighborhoods. They have the best lives. What have they suffered that they have trauma? What trauma?
And
I
they'll
want to
be
know the trauma.
attending all Kunste rallies.
Yeah, and we should apologize to them somehow. For what? What am I to apologize to them for?
Exactly.
What have I done to them? What has anybody done to them? Nothing.
Exactly. Could you imagine being a Jewish student in a school like that, or a Jewish teacher?
Well, that raises a whole other question about boundaries, which is what I talked about before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After having expressed an opinion like that in public about this particular demonstration, the question can be reasonably asked is, how can a student of Jewish background or Israeli background, let's say they're not Jewish, but they are still Israeli citizens, expatriates, and attending that school, feel comfortable being instructed by that teacher?
Right.
That hasn't that teacher put themselves in a position where they can no longer hold themselves out as being capable of impartially instructing and evaluating such a student?
Mm-hmm.
Michael, what you're asking is not far-fetched. It will happen. It's already happening. If we think back to the judge, the tax judge, who raised some questions about the potential hiring of a particular person at the University of Toronto, and then there was a call for him to be investigated. And even though he was investigated and found to have done nothing wrong, for a period of time, they removed from him every case that involved Muslims, to be judged, so that there wouldn't seem to be any kind of suggestion of impartiality, because he made a comment about. So they already did it to a judge.
Well, that's actually a really interesting case, because there's actually a professor at the University of Toronto Law School. His name is Mohammed Fadel, who commented that segregating him off from Judge Spiro from hearing cases involving Muslims or Palestinians appearing as litigants or counsel is an impossible proposition. First of all, there is no such thing as a questionnaire that's given to counsel or to litigants asking them, "Are you Muslim?" That question is offensive when they're appearing in court, and is probably unconstitutional. If I were a litigant or counsel, I would rip that paper up into a million pieces and send it back to the clerk of the court saying, "How dare you?" I even get that questionnaire from the Law Society asking me once a year about my ethnic background, and I always decline to answer, and I basically say, "None of your freaking business." In order to hold a license from the Law Society to practice law, I don't need to tell you whether I'm Jewish or Jedi. And I don't need to tell you about my political opinions. I could be a Jacobite for all you care and support the Stuart monarchy. These questions are completely irrelevant and invidious.
But they're only irrelevant so long as, the people in power, continue to believe they are irrelevant. All I'm suggesting here is that the pressure that's continuing to be put on school divisions, on universities, on law associations, on other places, and as these things continue to swell and swell and swell, I'm not seeing it far-fetched, where a Jewish teacher or a teacher who's believed to have Zionistic views, or a lawyer for that matter, or a judge, or somebody who runs for some kind of, would be put under tremendous pressure, to either resign, not participate, not belong, not take part. Can you imagine a Jewish history teacher or geography teacher in that school trying to teach on a balanced level anything? It's an impossibility. It's impossibility. You can't.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? There's actually a comment that came from someone in the audience that I
see it. Go ahead.
Say that this teacher, Anne-Marie Longpre, supposedly castigated the students in the TOPS program who did not participate in the walkout. I would be very grateful to receive a copy of that Twitter posting, because I'd like to compile a dossier on all of these Twitter postings that are going on, because if that is true, then that is yet another instance of a boundary violation that can support a potential complaint. And I just want to make one point about the complaints process as opposed to the TDSB. Toronto District School Board is the employer, and they're also the local school board. But they are not responsible for the discipline and licensing of teachers in Ontario. That's done by the Ontario College of Teachers. And the complaints process is quasi-judicial, which means that people who don't like what the college is doing can protest all they want in front of the college building. But that won't affect the decision. The decision has to go on record, and there have to be legally valid reasons for the decisions, and the decisions can ultimately be appealed to the divisional court, which is part of the Superior Court of Justice. So there is, so this kind of posturing that's going on might even be a sign of desperation, because by this point, Mr. Davila has received the complaint. He's received the complaint, what I imagine to be a fairly lengthy complaint from B'nai B'rith Canada, who's leading this this complaint. Presumably, they know what they're doing, and the evidence is very compelling. It's right there in the materials that he's put out, and they've been extensively quoted. So it's going to be very difficult for him to wiggle out of this legally. There's, in all likelihood, going to be a referral to the discipline committee, which is then a quasi-legal process.
Listen,
this has to be.
I'm assuming that at the end of the day, the day of judgment, the day of justice will come for him. He's just, like I always say, these are test balloons that are being thrown out there consistently by that side to see the reaction, to see how far they can push the envelope, to see what they can get away with, what they can, so they can be better prepared for the next time. Rest assured, there's another Desmond Cole and Mr. DeVille out there waiting in the wings to be the next people to jump on and continue this struggle. And that's my worry, that the pressure might not have an immediate impact today, but 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months down the road, if they put on maximum pressure continuously and all we do is sit back and wait and then we react, and then our reactions, sometimes are less than, what I consider to be, of a kind that do anything. It just worries me about where we'll be a year down the road and the next Mr. DeVille or the next Desmond Cole that comes out. And, the street talks,
No, absolutely. No, 100%. But yes, absolutely, we have to follow this up on every single level, on the legal level, on the activist level.
I'm not suggesting that the law is the only solution. I'm fully in favor of the concept that the best defense is a good offense.
Yes.
I encourage everyone who is in the audience who encounters this material on social media to fire back. And when I say fire back, don't do it just to us within our groups. There's no point in sending messages of outrage to Toronto Jewish community on alert. You're preaching to the choir. Right. You'll get 47 likes, but good for you. Right. What you need to do is you need to take your message of outrage to the website of, or the Twitter feed of Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, to take it to the website of Independent Jewish Voices Canada, to take it to the website of Palestine TDSB. That's where you need to take your message. And then you will be blocked. And then you get another Twitter account. And you might need to get 47 Twitter accounts. It doesn't cost any money to get another Twitter account. In which case, get another account and keep sending these messages out and make sure that what they say going out isn't cost-free. Because so far, they are living rent-free in our heads. We have to stop that and start living rent-free in their heads. But when you do that, the other thing to keep in mind is we have to be responsible in what we say. And my general rule in making claims and statements is I never say any factual matter that I cannot prove. In other words, I don't speculate as to other people's motives, and I don't speculate as to what the facts could be. As I said, I don't know what happened as far as the teachers or the administrators are out there. I have suspicions, I have hunches, inclinations, but I cannot make a factual claim because I don't have that information. I'd be very appreciative if someone who were involved in that school could come forward and provide information. I don't expect it to happen, but I think that we have to be very careful about not overreaching.
Michael, I agree with you to a certain level, but I can tell you, and Meir would maybe agree with me. We'll find out. But for people who've been doing this kind of work for decades now, we see certain patterns. And while I agree with you, we can't come out categorically say this is why it's happening or that's why it's happening. Experience, has a lot to do with it, and experience tells us a lot where things come out. And I understand what you're saying. You can't speculate. But you can draw, you can take the thread and you can thread it all together, and you can figure out, where the thread leads to. And we know just by looking at the manifesto and by looking at the organization of the protest and looking at some other things, we can come out to a pretty good conclusion, that this is led from outside forces, probably people that are beyond grade 11 or 12, that the manifesto was written by people outside of that age group, that this is a well-planned, well-oiled machine, probably run by one of the Palestinian organizations out there in Toronto, if not several of them. And this school is being used as ground zero, so to speak, just because of its population and its adherence to being part of the pro-Palestinian cause. That's the way I read it. That's the way I see it. I don't think this is influence from teachers onto the students. I believe this is influence from outside influences in. I think there might be teachers there for their own survival purposes, that are probably towing the line to some extent. There's probably teachers who probably are excited about this and feeling, part of it from a wokeism part of one point of view or whatever the case might be. But I think this is all led from outside the school system. It's in the mosques. It's at the children's homes. They're being indoctrinated by what they're seeing on TV, but the discussion around the kitchen table, but what they see on Twitter, what they see on social media.
No,
This
listen,
is
Ron, I
zero
gave
to
you
do
the
what's
example
happening
of
at school.
Islamic, or rather the Islamic Relief Canada statement they put out, and they're very active on their social media promoting the Palestine cause.
Next time there's a protest in Toronto, take a look who shows up on the pro-Palestinian side. Take a look at the age group. Take a look at who they are, and take a look at who comes out to a pro-Israel rally. Take a look at the age group. Take a look at the music. Take a look at the demeanor. Take a look at what people are trying to do. 9 times out of 10, if not 9.9 times out of 10, one side is trying to celebrate life, happiness, joy, peace. The other side is trying to celebrate, murder, genocide, ethnic cleansing that they want to do to the Jews. They complain about genocide, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, all the rest of it, but all they chant in all of their protests, Al-Quds Day, May 15th, and all the rest, is to do exactly that to the Jews. Genocide, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and all the rest of it. I've yet to be in one protest led by Meir or by myself or anybody else, but those were the chants from our side back to their side. And I think that's a big difference that people need to understand. One side here is fighting for life. The other side is not fighting for life. It's fighting for the death of the other side.
Look at who they support when it comes to Al-Quds Day. They support the Islamic regime in Iran. Their declaration, their stated goal to destroy Israel. They don't hide it. They say it. And they have marches stepping on Israeli flags. They're very public about this. And that's exactly what they stand in unity with on Al-Quds Day. All over the world, these BDS groups. There is no concept or any feel in them, in any of their writings for some kind of a compromise solution, two-state solution, anything like that. Just like you pointed out, the map includes the entire region. I should also point out it doesn't include Jordan. They have no problem with an Arab Islamic state in Jordan.
By the way, now that you mentioned Jordan, I don't know if you're aware of it, but in Dubai right now, there's the World Expo in Dubai, and in the Jordanian pavilion, actually, they're showcasing 3 different regions of Jordan. One of the regions is the region of Ramallah. Okay, so Ramallah being the part of the West Bank. So Jordan, in the World Expo right now happening in Dubai, is claiming Ramallah, the area of Ramallah, to be part of Jordan. Number one. Number two, I'm not sure if you're aware right now that there's a huge fight within Hebron between clans within Hebron that the Palestinian Authority cannot get a control under. I can send you guys later photos of the destruction, the burnings and stuff. Do you know who the Palestinians are calling on to come in and help them? The Jordanians, they're begging the Jordanians to come in and take over from the Palestinian Authority because the Palestinian Authority can't control, what's going on in their own territory.
And
right?
ultimately, that's probably the only
amazing.
solution that could be, that they have to be what they were before, citizens of Jordan.
It's
And
just
that's the solution.
It's just crazy, and I there's a lot of I'm trying to read everything that's happening at the same time. As we're talking, a lot of chatter happening on the chat.
Yes.
And I understand, Natalie, I understand that everything we say gets screenshotted and then dissected and redissected.
Right.
And probably somebody tries to snap back the video to make it seem that we
Right.
said something that we didn't say. I can tell you I didn't point a finger to any one particular person. I'm just telling you as a general understanding of 30 plus years of being in this business, that you can take the needle and the thread and you can put it together and you can come to a pretty good conclusion of what's going on. And if I'm wrong, I want somebody to prove me wrong, and I bet you nobody can prove me wrong.
Okay, so I think our doctor in the studio, there was a problem uplifting some of the videos. It's the first time it happened, but because he has a new computer and there's a problem with passwords. But he may have, we're winding it down. We've been on for an hour already, the show, but possibly he was able to upload some of the video. And if he has, then we could show it. He says, definitely a problem. Okay.
So here's the problem. I'm going to get a brand new computer because I ran out of memory on my old one with these podcasts. But when they went to the new computer, all my memorized passwords have been deleted. So it's.
But I don't think this is a big.
Get them together.
I don't think this is a problem. I think this is an opportunity for our audience to get on their Twitter, and to start searching a little bit of this stuff and getting educated. I'm sure many of the people that watch the show are well educated, but those are not. That's what Meir and I do. I'm not sure if the same as what Michael does or what the doctor does back at home, but I probably spend 2 to 3 hours a day. I have certain people that I follow, not from our side, from the opposite side. That's how I learn. That's how I understand what's going on. That's how I keep myself up to breast of what's happening. That's how I'm able to sit and predict what the future is going to be, because I can foresee what's happening now and I can see where it's leading.
You know what? It seems like it's Sunday night seems to be a good time because it looks like a lot of different people are tuning in and out on the show, and a lot of comments are going. Also, Sunday night might be a preferred night to Wednesday night. In fact, looks like people over the weekend have a little bit more time on their hands.
Whoever Canadian Sunset is, if you don't want to put out any information publicly, Meir, where's the best place they can send that where you'll keep it anonymous and they will not have to worry about the information being provided to you? What's the best link or the best email address?
Go onto our website and send it to us, israelnow.ca. Send it to us, we'll get it, and you can contact us as well. So send us a message, identify yourself.
In the end of the day, Meir, at the end of the day, this is not a Jewish problem. This is, a problem for all of us.
Well, 100%.
And it's not a problem that just yourself or Michael Tapper. And Michael, by the way, in Hebrew we say chapeau to you. That means I take my hat down to you. I find what you're doing in this fight, with the TDSB to get, I find it courageous. I wish there were more people like you, Michael, out there, and like Meir and myself, who would come out to the front line and have a light shine on them and show that you can just be an average Joe doing your average thing, but you can still be committed. You can still be part of the fight. And each one of us, if we do our small part, it rolls into a much bigger ball. And then we have a much bigger impact, if we're united. And what we're seeing on the Palestinian side or the pro-Palestinian side is that they figured out that thing. And they're very united, very lubricated as a machine. And it doesn't make a difference if you're up here or if you're down here. Everybody's got an important role to play, and everybody plays a role. Some people are soldiers, some people are worker bees, just like a hive that functions. And we need, as a Jewish community, to figure out our own hive and how we function in our own hive. So again, Michael, I haven't had the opportunity to say that to you before, but a lot of respect goes to you for what you've done so far.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. There's one other thing I wanted to point out, just as my parting shot, which is regarding our friend Debbie Kasman. In some of the correspondence that's gone back and forth with the college, etc., there was one little thing I wanted to point out. Remember earlier on in this conversation, the question came up as to whether I'm being paid for something. And this allegation came up as well. She wrote this: We know Mr. Tepper has connections to B'nai B'rith. They've said so publicly. And we know Mr. Tepper is working on this during the workday and sometimes using his work email address. So not only is Mr. Tepper a troll, he's likely a paid lobbyist. So
Wow.
this is the first time I've ever been accused of being a paid lobbyist for B'nai B'rith. But I took the liberty of contacting them and asking them to write a letter to the college saying that on no account would they employ someone whose writing skills is as mediocre as mine. And they didn't put the part about the mediocre writing skills in, but they did clarify for the record that I do not work for them, never have been, and probably will never work for them in any capacity other than perhaps a volunteer on their bingo nights.
Right.
Yeah, but it's easy to accuse you, right? It's easy
But
to
of
make
course,
false
it's the
allegations about
Israel
you.
lobby being accused, right?
Well, once the those kinds of accusations. So who's paying you? Well, I can't answer that because I cannot prove a negative. I will never be able to prove definitively with mathematical precision that I don't work for the Mossad.
Yeah, no, it's
Sure.
It's true. Listen, if they want to
Now that you know that I'm probably I'm not much of a secret agent because I just revealed all the secrets.
Right.
Yeah, you know what?
I've gotten accused of being with the Mossad and you name it.
We all do it because of our passion for Israel.
Besides, I don't even have the physical fitness level. I can't even run a 9-minute mile.
But you know, this just proves the point. You know, a lot of people say, you know, what can I do? How can I help? You know, look at me. I don't look like, you know, you don't need to be in the front in order to have impact. You don't have to be, you know, leading, you know, the battle in order to help win the war.
No, listen, anyone that
work
wants
that
to
can
get
be done
involved and help, you could go on to the Never Again live show page on Facebook and send us a message, or you can go on to the israelnow.ca website, send us a message, get involved. Believe me, we could use you. We could use you to help with research. No question about it. There's every hour there's something to be researched. Maybe every half an hour, in fact.
Every minute, if I open up my Twitter right now, I could probably find you half a dozen tweets.
Absolutely.
You know, between us controlling the fertilizer of the world,
right,
to the JNF actually over planting trees in Israel to try and mask the fact that they've uprooted 900,000 olive trees, the same 4,000-year-old olive trees, you know, that the Palestinians have tended to, you know, for 4,000 years. It's ridiculous. I just want to say something and respond to Michael for a second. You know, I always take it as you know, it's something positive when somebody tells me I must be paid by Hasbara, because then I figured, you know, I must be at such a level, you know, of knowledge about what's happening in Israel and the Palestinian-Israel, you know, conflict to be labeled as a Hasbara. So I think same for you, Michael. You should take it as a you know, as above honor when somebody tells you you're Hasbara. You've reached such a high level, you know, that you're declared. You know, I wish there was some kind of a badge we could carry.
They must think that what I'm doing in for this Israel advocacy stuff actually has a market value, that it's worth money.
It's ridiculous, but that's what they think about Jews. It's all about the money. If you don't pay us, we don't do anything, right? So we must get paid to do this. Otherwise,
we're going to make new T-shirts. We'll make new T-shirts. I am a Zionist lobbyist, and I'm a paid Jew. Right.
Yeah, you know,
you have to make one of those, and then you have to make another one that just says, "I'm an unpaid Jew. I do this for
I'm
free."
an unpaid Jew. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all of us here today on the show. That's all of us on the show here. We do it because of our love for Israel, a love for the Jewish people, our belief in Zionism, our belief in our righteous right to be the, you know, back at our homeland, the indigenous homeland of the Jewish people. But I think each one of us believes in peace, believes in the hope that one day there will be a resolution to this conflict, that one day everybody in the region can live in peace and harmony. We're seeing it already with the Abraham Accord.
We want
and we hope that it just continues.
There's no question about it. But what is going on in these schools is outrageous, and
Absolutely.
It has to be brought to the highest level. And the government, there has to be government intervention there, because this is blatant anti-Semitism, and Jewish students, Israelis shouldn't have to contend with any of this at all, or Jewish teachers, or Christian teachers, or anyone who wants nothing to do with the BDS. And the BDS is complete hate.
I'd be interested to know if that school would be open to inviting or to allowing anybody from the pro-Israel side, to come in to have a debate, a discussion, a conversation, and then I'd like them to tell us that we can't come in there and do that. That would be
let's
another
go there
show.
and hand out flyers one day.
Actually,
right?
that would be a great idea. I think that there should be an intervention and a letter to the principal and the superintendent requesting an audience.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. And then let them tell you no.
Okay, and you know what, Michael? I'll do that. For the record, I will send a letter to the principal of the school. No question about it. Absolutely.
I think Avi Ben Lula and all the rest of them who are, outraged by this should send
That's
equal
going to
letters
come from us.
asking for equal time.
And I will invite the principal, in fact, to come on the show, and we could be on the show with him. And if he doesn't want to come on the show, we'll have another show about that, in fact. Give him the opportunity.
Hey, we just want equal time. We just want equal time. We want to straighten out some falsehoods that might have been mentioned. We want to make sure that we address it correctly. Israel was called an apartheid state. Israel was called a genocidal state. We as Jews and as pro-Zionists, have a problem with that. We want to set the record straight.
But that English teacher, in fact, on her Twitter, previously has accused Israel of, quote, slaughtering Palestinians.
I'd like to know what kind of teachings happen in the classrooms there. I'd like to know what audits have been done to their classrooms of the teachings there. With this kind of hate against Jews fermenting in a school, I want to know what kind of audits have been done to their classes to make sure that this is, not being continuously spread, through their classes. I mean, there's lots we can do as a community if we just chose to unite as a community and put pressure on them and make this school an example, so no other principal in any other school would ever think of having something like this happen in their school. But if we allow this to go unabated, unchallenged, then there's no reason why it wouldn't happen in another school. And it comes back to what I tell you all the time, Meir. It's all test balloons, my friend. If we allow them to march through our streets in an anti-Israel march, then why are we expecting any different? It's up to us, to stand up sometime. We can't depend just on other people to do some
and all
work.
Correspondence also, all letters should be copied also to the Minister of Education.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to take a stand here.
Speaking of which, it should also be copied to the chair of the TDSB. His name is Alexander Brown. He's actually a friend of mine. He's been very supportive in this. Personally, I've had correspondence with him, and he should be aware of this. It should go to the Director of Education. Her name is Ms. Russell Rollins, and I think her name is Colleen Russell Rollins, and the chair of the board, Alexander Brown. Also to the local school trustee for the district in which Marcano is located. All of these people should be contacted and should be invited to appear on your show, or should it be invited to have an audience where a delegation can go to the school and give a presentation.
Yeah, Meir, the same thing we did with the Canadian Museum for Human Rights here when they tried to bring the Nakba in. And we just went full throttle, my friend. It was like, hey, if you guys want to do it, you have to.
Campaign. Absolutely.
But what I'd recommend is if Michael, before we get off, you could give those names and resources to Meir, and Meir, if you can compile it.
I will send an email with all those contacts. Yes, no problem.
And then you compile it in one of your, one of your MailChimp things you send out, a contact. Let's blast it out, put it on the website, and let's really get some traction on this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I can run, but
perfect. Gentlemen, it's
listen, we covered a lot. Let's just see if our doctor in the studio has something to add, or if he's got the song worked out for the end. Yes, we do. We have a song coming up now. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure. Watch song.
Hey guys, so I just want to say that, not as an apology, but as an explanation to you as well as to the audience, I got a brand new computer. Well, that was my mistake. So tomorrow we'll get it all tuned up. I couldn't do any videos. Because I couldn't do any videos, and I know how much you appreciate my bad sense of humor, I'm going to tell you a quick little story before the song of the week. Okay? So basically, there's these three moms, and all of them are kind of disappointed with their daughter's choice in boyfriend. So this Italian mom says to the daughter, if you bring him home one more time, your father's going to kill him. Okay, so the Arab mother says to her daughter, if you bring this boy home one more time, your brother's going to kill you. The Jewish mother says to the daughter, if you bring this boyfriend home one more time, I'm going to kill myself. So it kind of shows the differences. And with that as a closing note, let's hear a little bit of Atikva.
Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel.